President, Prime Minister Netanyahu said there's no starvation in Gaza. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't know. I mean, based on television, I would say not particularly, because those children look very hungry. But we're giving a lot of money and a lot of food, and other nations are now stepping up.
That was President Trump breaking with Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's assessment that there's, quote, no starvation in Gaza. Trump did acknowledge he'd seen pictures on television of children in Gaza, and they, quote, looked very hungry.
Speaking to the reporters during a meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in Scotland, Trump vowed to set, quote, food centers up in Gaza. Let's take a listen.
We're going to continue onward. We do have to take care of the humanitarian needs on what they used to call the Gaza Strip. You don't hear that line too much anymore. You don't hear the Gaza Strip, but it is the Gaza Strip, and it's amazing that it's not being handled a little bit differently. We're going to set up food centers, and we're going to do it in conjunction with some very good people, and we're going to supply funds. And we just took in trillions of dollars. We got a lot of money, and we're going to spend a little money on some food. And other nations are joining us. I know your nation's joining us, and we have all of the European nations joining us, and others also have called, and they want to be helpful. So we're going to set up food centers and where the people can walk in.
Meanwhile, former President Obama wrote in a post on X, quote, while a lasting resolution to the crisis in Gaza must involve a return of all hostages and a cessation of Israel's military operations, these articles underscore the immediate need for action to be taken to prevent the travesty of innocent people dying of preventable starvation. I think that you have to be clear, like, Hamas is a terrorist organization. It's not a legitimate government. There's weapons and civilians in the areas of those weapons and issues happening. But at the same time, 2.3 million people cannot be starved in this way. This is not moral. Starving people is not part of any act of war. It is a war crime. And so I think that the condemnation of what's happening is important, and it needs to be as loud as it is. And I'm glad that President Trump is seeing, like, you have to sometimes sidestep Netanyahu, because he is not, like you said, of any leader, end all be all, always correct. And even though Israel does have a right to defend itself from the attack that happened a few years ago in October, it's still time to figure out how these innocent people can stop being so deeply affected in ways that are easily preventable by just allowing the UN and other people to come in.
Yeah, and they have reacted. Israel killed tons of Hamas militants in Gaza, as was their right. But I am seeing these images. I'm reading and following the reporting on what's going on in Gaza, and it is really shocking to the conscience, the level of suffering of children, women, innocent people who, we can say, well, it's Hamas's fault and it's, this and that, but it's what can these people do? They are caught in this awful situation, and they have Israel trying to root out Hamas and killing people, and they're starving, and thousands have died, and thousands more could die imminently because they've just run out of food. It's so hard to even contemplate, and I don't know how anyone can say we can just let this happen, especially because Israel has laid siege to it, controls the whole area around it, and is in the position to dictate what food can get in. On some level, then, you broke it, you bought it. Like, you own the suffering of you have some obligation now to take care of these people that live in such a broken part of land. So I'm glad for what Trump said, and certainly we need to allow for humanitarian efforts to intervene.
And several
people who want to help should be allowed to help.
Have reported that people are going to seek those food areas, have been killed, I think more than 1,100 at this point. And I think, the biggest thing is that history is watching. Everyone is going to be judged for how they reacted in this moment, whether they chose courage or whether they chose conformity. Yeah. And I think that's a big deal, and that everyone should be involved in
resolving the political, diplomatic, security issues there is very complicated, but I don't think it's complicated that we can't let thousands of people starve before our very eyes.
Coming up next, Pete Buttigieg giving his 2 cents about the direction of the Democratic Party. I'm going to break down his assessment and my thoughts coming up in my lens. Stick around.